Want to know why? Ask how. Howard the Humongous. Where does Donald Trump's America First come from? I suspect it's not entirely from what you and I would normally think. It's not just an extension of Nazi sympathizer Charles Lindbergh's America First movement in 1940 and 1941. It's a brand new extension of a philosophy red in tooth and claw. It's a new extension of Donald Trump's personal philosophy, a philosophy of putting Donald Trump first. It's a new extension of the philosophy of selfishness that Donald Trump probably learned at his father's knee. Donald Trump's father, Fred Trump, developed real estate in Queens and in Coney Island, Brooklyn. Providing housing can be a profoundly unselfish act. It gives people who wouldn't have a good place to live a good place to call home. But apparently Fred Trump didn't see it that way. It looks as if he saw real estate development as red in tooth and claw, as a killer business. There are hints that Fred Trump raised his son Donald to wake up every morning imagining himself as a lion who could only live by killing. A predator whose task for the day was to chase and kill a gazelle. Or as Trump's friend, Tom Barrack, the CEO of Colony Capital, put it at the Republican nominating convention in Cleveland, Ohio, Donald Trump's quote, motto is that a lion wakes up every morning and knows one thing, that it has to run faster than the fastest gazelle. And a gazelle wakes up and she knows that she needs to run faster than the fastest lion. But whether you're a gazelle or a lion, you get up in the morning and you get the hell going, and that is Donald, said his friend Tom Barrack. And that's how Donald Trump has lived his life. He has had 6 bankruptcies. In those bankruptcies, he has left roughly 500 small businesses holding the bag, unpaid, without even the money to pay back the expenses they'd laid out. He has escaped paying those small businesses for the work they've done for him. In many cases, he has put those firms who helped him out, he has put them out of business entirely. Like the Philadelphia cabinet builder Edward Friel Jr., who USA Today reports landed a $400,000 contract to build the bases for slot machines, for registration desks, for bars, and other cabinets at Harrah's Trump Plaza. Trump didn't pay the $83,600 he owed. That's $180,000 in today's dollars. And a company that had been around for 3 generations went belly up. USA Today also documented Trump's failures to pay the amount he'd promised to individual laborers, ranging from dishwashers to painters. Yet every time Trump went bankrupt, one person came out with a profit, a big one. One person came out richer, Donald Trump. In fact, Trump was so proud of his ability to suck big bucks from stiffing others that he's bragged that he is the master of bankruptcies. Trump killed the gazelles, and Trump ate their meat. Trump worked from a philosophy of me first. Now I suspect Donald Trump wants to do the same thing for you and me. He wants to run America as a predatory nation, a nation that makes deals that cripple others like the Mexicans and the Chinese. In the same way that he put himself first, he now wants to put America first. With the Chinese, that may make some sense. It's exactly what the Chinese have been doing us since the 1980s. They have stolen our technologies. Then they've built companies to rival ours, and once the Chinese firms have stolen all they need to beat us at our own games, they have used protectionary practices of all kinds to squeeze American companies out of their vast 1.2 billion person consumer market. I first ran across this with John Denver. The Chinese convinced John Denver, he was my client, that John Denver was loved more than any other musician in the world. And they persuaded John to spend a year spending his own money to investigate how to put on a massive tour in China. They assured him that the places would be packed, that the venues would be packed, that people would be screaming for him. Then it came time for the final deal. And it turned out that the Chinese wanted John Denver to build a modern, state-of-the-art recording studio at his expense. They wanted him to train engineers, Chinese engineers, to use that studio. And once the engineers had been trained and the studio had been built so they could study how to build modern studios of their own, they were going to wash their hands of John Denver. It was all a con. That was the Chinese government. The Chinese have had a philosophy very much like the lion and the gazelle worldview that Trump seems to have inherited from his dad. Trump's protectionist philosophy may also make a certain amount of sense in dealing with the European Union, which also has set up protective barriers, protectionist barriers, against us, the United States, in order to foster its own industries and to give us, the United States, a run for our money. Look, if Donald Trump can convince companies like Foxconn and Samsung to set up plants in America, that would be great. But the global economy is profoundly synergistic. Many countries contribute to your wealth and mine. We can afford our clothes because they are made in Bangladesh, where labor is cheap. And our willingness to buy clothing from Bangladesh pulls Bangladeshi men and women out of poverty. It gives them jobs and money in quantities they have never seen before. It frees women from hauling water, laundering, and cooking in a small space filled with toxic smoke that will kill them 20 years earlier than they would otherwise die. It helps the Bangladeshis escape slavery to their husbands, and it also frees men. That's what buying our manufactured goods from China has also done. It's given us toys, laptops, and smartphones at prices we can afford. And in the process, it's lifted 300 million Chinese out of poverty. It's uplifted as many people from poverty as the entire population of the United States. That's what your hunger for gadgets made in China has done, not to mention mine. I'm covered with those gadgets. Do we have to make these people poor again in order to make ourselves richer? Absolutely not. Do we have to work harder to get factories from Asian and European multinationals built here? Yes. But that's already been happening under previous presidents, two of whom were Democrats, Clinton and Obama. Japanese car makers like Toyota, Honda, Nissan, and Mitsubishi already have plants here, without Donald Trump. Nissan has 3 assembly plants in the USA. German car manufacturers Volkswagen, BMW, and Mercedes have factories here too. BMW actually exports American-made SUVs to other nations, BMW brand SUVs, made in America. Then there are German chemical companies like BASF. In fact, BASF has 100 manufacturing and research and development facilities in North America. And Siemens, the company that makes the steam turbines that generate and the transformers that conduct electricity in some of our grids. Siemens has over 100 manufacturing sites in the USA. But yes, we could benefit from Foxconn and Samsung plants. We could benefit from more of them. But the more others we impoverish, the fewer customers there will be for our goods, and the poorer we will be. We do not have to kill gazelles to thrive. The more gazelles do well, the richer we will be, just like cattle herders who grow richer from the increase in the size of their herd. The bottom line is what my book, The Genius of the Beast, A Radical Revision of Capitalism, calls generous selfishness. In the long run, selfishness only makes sense if it is accompanied by altruism. We have to know what Fred Trump may have forgotten. In the long run, Fred, Donald's father, made a profit off of his tenants if his tenants made a good living and could pay their rent Not if his apartments deteriorated and his tenants went broke. Then they couldn't pay the rent at all. The metaphor of the lion and the gazelle was false. So, in the end, was me first. And will that same inapplicability, invalidity, apply to America first? We shall have to see. This is Howard the Humongous speaking to you from the future. It's your job and my job to make, or, want to know why, ask how. Now, for the sneaky, sleazy, slimy, seditious little off button.